Imagine a place where the police drive $3 million Bugattis just to keep up with traffic. A place where you can buy gold bars from an ATM, ski in the middle of a blistering desert, and live in a penthouse so high up you're literally above the clouds. This isn't a scene from a sci-fi movie. It's Dubai. But just 60 years ago, this global playground was nothing more than a quiet patch of sand and a few fishing huts. How did a tiny desert village transform into a $100 billion economy that defies the laws of nature? Get ready to be amazed as we explore the impossible rise of Dubai, a city that was built on a dream, a massive gamble, and a lot more than just oil. Before the towers and the trade routes, Dubai ran on one thing: natural pearls. For centuries, divers from this small trading port would descend into the Persian Gulf with nothing but a rope, a nose clip, and a basket. They could hold their breath for up to 3 minutes at a time. The best divers could make dozens of dives in a single day. It was dangerous, physically punishing work, and for a long time it was enough to sustain the city. By the early 1900s, Dubai's pearl industry was one of the most productive in the world. The Gulf pearl was considered among the finest available, and merchants across India, Europe, and the Arabian Peninsula paid a premium for them. Then, in 1930, Japan changed everything. A Japanese entrepreneur named Mikimoto had spent decades developing a method to cultivate pearls artificially, forcing oysters to produce them under controlled conditions. When cultured pearls reached the global market, they were virtually identical to natural ones, and they were a fraction of the cost. Within a decade, the natural pearl market had collapsed almost entirely. Dubai's primary export was worthless. The fishing boats still went out. The divers still dove. But the buyers had stopped coming. By the mid-1930s, Dubai was in a genuine economic crisis. Not a recession, a structural collapse. An entire industry and the way of life built around it had been made irrelevant not by war or disaster, but by a single technological change on the other side of the world. It was the kind of moment that ends cities. For Dubai, it was the moment that forced a different kind of thinking. Sheikh Rashid bin Zayed Al Maktoum became the ruler of Dubai in 1958. He inherited a city that was already in a difficult position. The pearl economy had collapsed, infrastructure was minimal, and there was no obvious path forward. What distinguished Rashid from other leaders of that era was a specific kind of pragmatism. He did not wait for circumstances to change. He looked at what Dubai had: a coastline, a natural creek, a strategic location between east and west, and he asked a straightforward question: what would it take to make merchants want to come here? The answer was infrastructure, and the first piece was the creek. Dubai Creek was a natural inlet that ran through the city. It had served as a trading route for generations. But by the late 1950s, it was too shallow for modern cargo vessels. Large ships could not enter. Trade was being redirected to deeper ports elsewhere in the region. In 1959, Rashid took out a loan of 400,000 British pounds from Kuwait, a significant sum for a city with limited revenue, and used it to dredge the creek. His advisors questioned the scale of the investment. Critics called it reckless. The city did not yet have enough trade to justify a deeper port, let alone the debt required to build one. But Rashid understood something that his critics did not. You do not build infrastructure for the trade you have. You build it for the trade you intend to attract. Within a few years, larger cargo ships began using the creek. Merchants followed. By the early 1960s, Dubai had positioned itself as the most accessible trading hub on the southern Gulf Coast. Then, in 1966, oil was discovered offshore at the Fateh field. For most leaders in that position, the story ends there. Oil revenue arrives, gets distributed, and the underlying economy remains unchanged. Rashid used it differently. He is reported to have said, and the quote, whether precisely his or not, captures his philosophy exactly, that his grandfather rode a camel, his father rode a camel, he drove a Mercedes, his son drove a Land Rover, but his son's son would ride a camel again. Unless something was built that would outlast the oil. So he built the Jebel Ali port, at the time the largest man-made harbor in the world. He built it before there was sufficient demand to fill it. He built it as a statement of intent. That Dubai was serious, that it was permanent, and that it was open for business. By the 1990s, Dubai's oil revenue was already declining as a share of the overall economy. The city had followed through on Rashid's logic: build the infrastructure, and the commerce will come. But his successors, and in particular Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who took increasing control through the 1990s, decided that infrastructure alone was not the end goal. The goal was relevance. Global, undeniable, impossible to ignore relevance. What followed was one of the most concentrated periods of large-scale construction in modern history. The Palm Jumeirah was conceived as a solution to a simple problem. Dubai did not have enough coastline to meet the demand for waterfront property. The solution was to create more coastline by building an artificial island in the shape of a palm tree, extending into the Persian Gulf. The project required 94 million cubic meters of sand, dredged from the seafloor and shaped without concrete or steel. At the time of its construction, it was the largest land reclamation project in human history. Then came the Burj Khalifa. Construction began in 2004. The building required 330,000 cubic meters of concrete, 39,000 tons of steel, and over 22 million hours of labor across its 6 years of construction. It stands at 828 meters, more than twice the height of the Empire State Building, and it was completed in 2010. An interesting consequence of its height: residents on the upper floors see the sun for slightly longer each evening, which means they break their Ramadan fast a few minutes after those on the ground. These were not vanity projects, or not only that. Each one served a commercial function. The Palm created real estate. The Burj created global media attention worth far more than any advertising campaign. Every photograph of the Dubai skyline is, functionally, an advertisement. The city was being designed deliberately, systematically, to be photogenic, to be aspirational, and to be memorable. There is a persistent assumption that Dubai is an oil city, that its wealth is inherited, not earned. The numbers do not support that. Oil accounts for less than 1% of Dubai's GDP today. The economy is built on 4 pillars: trade, tourism, real estate, and financial services. Each of those pillars was constructed deliberately over the past 60 years. In 2025, Dubai welcomed approximately 18 to 20 million overnight visitors, placing it consistently among the top 5 most visited cities in the world. Dubai International Airport handles more than 90 million passengers per year, making it the world's busiest international aviation hub. The city's population has grown from 59,000 in 1968 to over 3.6 million today. More than 85% of that population are expatriates, professionals, laborers, and entrepreneurs from over 200 countries, many of whom chose Dubai because of its tax structure, its connectivity, and its stability. The current leadership has published a plan called the D33 Economic Agenda, which targets doubling the size of Dubai's economy by 2033 and establishing it as one of the top 3 global cities for business and tourism. Whether that target is met or not, the ambition itself is the point. Dubai has consistently operated on timelines that other cities would consider unrealistic, and has consistently built ahead of demand rather than in response to it. Dubai's story at its core is a story about sequencing. They built before the demand existed, and somehow the demand followed. What many call a miracle is, on closer inspection, a method. Of course, not every city could replicate what Dubai achieved. Geography, timing, and capital all played a role. But the underlying principle remains powerful: build for the future, not the present, and position yourself before the world arrives. From sand to steel, Dubai is proof that, with enough vision and the willingness to act early, transformation isn't luck, it's strategy. If you enjoy deep dives into the world's most powerful cities, companies, and ideas, subscribe and stay ahead of the curve.